Most of us are familiar with the Groundhog Day tradition that on February 2nd, if a groundhog comes out of its hole and sees its shadow, gets scared, and then runs back into its burrow, that means there will be 6 more weeks of winter weather. If it doesn't see its shadow, it means an early spring will arrive. But where and how did this peculiar event begin? Falling midway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, February 2nd is a significant day in several ancient and modern cultures. In his 2003 book Groundhog Day, folklorist Don Yoder traces the roots of Groundhog Day to the same cycle of pre-Christian festivals that gives us Halloween and May Day. The seasonal turning points in the Celtic calendar year were immensely important communal festivals in pre-Christian times. Of these festivals, the dates have continued to be important down to the present time as they look to the coming 3-month period, and hence were very weather-important days to the Celts. The Celtic name for the 4 festivals was 1. Samhain, which would occur on November 1st, Imbolc, which would occur on February 1st and into February 2nd, Beltane, which would occur on May 1st, and Lunasa, which would occur on August 1st. For the ancient Europeans, these days were so crucial and so embedded in their cultural sense of time that when the Western European people were Christianized, the new church, unable to root out these festivals, baptized them into Christian holidays. The one we are interested in for the sake of this video is Imbolc, originally February 1st and extended into February 2nd. Of course, Imbolc now goes by many names. In the Christian calendar, it became the feast of the purification of the Virgin Mary and the presentation of Christ in the temple. And in the Irish Church in particular, it's celebrated as St. Bridget's Day. It's traditionally a day when people brought their candles to church to be blessed, so in English vernacular tradition, it's called Candlemas. And in certain parts of Europe, Christians believed that sunny Candlemas meant another 40 days of cold and snow. According to the Encyclopedia of Irish Spirituality, the days February 1st and 2nd remain an agricultural festival. Farmers expect good weather for planting on Imbolc, and fishermen traditionally overhauled their boats on this day. In traditional practice, there is divination to foretell the weather and family fortunes in the coming year. This encyclopedia also states the badger as the Candlemas weather prophet throughout much of the German-speaking Europe, or Badger Day, which is a German folk expression for Candlemas. The belief was, if the badger encountered sunshine on Candlemas and therefore saw its shadow, he crawled back into his hole to stay for 4 more weeks, which would be a continuation of winter weather. In his book, Yoder points out that the badger is very much like the groundhog, being small, hibernating, a forest-dwelling mammal known for being very shy, and it was only natural for German-speaking immigrants to America to substitute the groundhog for the badger. The first mention Yoder has found of groundhogs predicting the weather on February 2nd is in a diary entry for that day in 1840, written by a Welsh-American storekeeper in Pennsylvania, in which it reads, "Today the Germans say the groundhog comes out of his winter quarters, and if he sees his shadow, he returns in and remains there 40 days. Since the belief and practice almost certainly came from Europe, and since the bulk of Pennsylvania Dutch immigration to the United States occurred between 1727 and 1775, it's very likely that Groundhog Day was born in that period of time. The best-known Groundhog Day ceremony occurs each year in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. This annual festival traces its origins to 1887, when the first celebration was the brainchild of local newspaper editor Clymer Frias, who sold a group of businessmen and groundhog hunters known collectively as the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club on the idea. The men trekked to the site called Gobbler's Knob, where the inaugural groundhog became the bearer of bad news when he saw his shadow that day. The observance developed into an annual event, with the groundhog given the name Punxsutawney Phil in the 1960s. Nowadays, the yearly festivities in Punxsutawney are presided over by a band of local dignitaries known as the Inner Circle. Its members wear top hats and conduct the official proceedings in the Pennsylvania Dutch dialect. Though it's only one of the many Groundhog Day ceremonies held all across the United States and Canada, the Punxsutawney event is certainly the most popular, especially since it became the basis of the famous comedy film Groundhog Day. But really, how accurate is Punxsutawney Phil when it comes to predicting the weather? Studies by the National Climatic Data Center and the Canadian Weather Service have yielded a dismal success rate of around 50% for Punxsutawney Phil. If you want to get even more accurate, there's a groundhog on Staten Island named Chuck, who is reportedly accurate almost 80% of the time. So it's safe to assume Chuck is a better weatherman than Phil. But that's all I got for you today. That's the brief history of Groundhog Day. Check out this video right here if you're interested in another great history story, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.